Can you hear it? Welcome to Relay.
Hello everyone and welcome to another Relay thing where we watch a panel. Joining me today is Nehkara and the Auto DJ.
Attention Relay viewers, this is the Auto DJ speaking.
Auto DJ. I do apologize. I had thought we were starting early, but then I messed it up, so we're starting a little late. But hey, we're starting. So let's we're gonna do the same thing we've done for the last few panels, which is basically the three of us are going to all hit play at the same time. We're gonna watch, and then when we want to talk, we'll interrupt and say, "Hey, let's pause," and we'll pause. Then we'll talk. Then we'll hit play again and start and go, and yeah, we're just sticking to the same old plan because I don't know why.
Because the plan works.
Yeah, it seems to work. I'm happy with it. I mean, Darge, I know that there are better ways to do it.
But this method works, and it does not overload your bandwidth.
There are better ways to do it, but yeah, this way works, and I'm happy with it. So, also, let's be completely honest here. If this cast gets any more complicated, I can't run it anymore because I am severely incompetent. Just having the three of us
for this.
just having the three of us in Windows with names, man, that is the limit of my abilities.
Yeah, he's lost the ability to add a fourth person.
Yeah, I did. I had to just move the chat there. Okay, let's start this.
Oh man!
Auto DJ Nehkara, are you ready?
Correct.
3, 2, 1, action.
Mr. Ian Leyland and Michelle Cooper. All right, gentlemen, take it
Hello,
away.
Ian Leyland.
All right. Did you all enjoy the gameplay you saw earlier today? That was something, right?
I slightly enjoyed the gameplay,
Today,
yes.
We want to
Slightly?
break down a little
It was
bit
all
what
right.
you saw
Slightly.
when you were flying over Hurston and walking through Lorville. So yeah, let's kick it off.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good to see you again. What we're going to cover this year is a little bit more specific as to what we've been focusing on, mainly Hurston, which is the art of Hurston. The main things we'll get into is to why we can do like what we consider an entire talk just on Hurston.
Not sure if I should drink this
Before we
beer.
get into that, obviously, I'm Ian. I'm the Star Citizen art director. This is Michelle. You'll notice there was a third member of our company that unfortunately didn't make it.
There's like
Complications in the airport. So we'll just jump straight in. So what do we want to achieve? So this
wait,
was
someone
be our
didn't make
first
it
planet
due to
in Star
complications in the
Citizen.
airport.
The
That's
two main
sketchy.
things that we wanted to really push was
Their passport was
freedom of
declined.
and diversity.
That sucks.
The current play space right now in the game is obviously it's quite big, but what we had the opportunity to do on Hurston was to expand that play space by
Man, that looks nice.
many factors. So we wanted to make sure that we wanted to push that diversity. So when you guys
It
play
does.
it
So
feels like an interesting experience.
feeling of scale, diversity. Okay,
so scale?
So scale.
If our
Hurston's real
calculations
big.
are correct, in-game diameter of Daymar is 590
Really frickin' big.
kilometers. Hurston is 232,370 kilometers. So
I
it's
already thought
quite a
Daymar
lot
was
bigger.
way too big.
And imagine the variety that we currently have.
You know
in
what's funny?
Daymar. Scale
That
it
actually
up
makes Hurston almost exactly the same size as Pluto in real life.
to the new size of what Hurston is, and
Pluto is a
usually,
lot bigger than I thought
it's
it
quite easy
was.
to see, like, okay, with that amount of space to cover,
The funny thing is,
we need
he
more
said
variety.
almost.
It's going to be not worth even
Yes.
having that much space if we don't break it up.
Yeah,
and have
Pluto's
more
slightly larger
exciting
than
stuff
that.
for you guys to explore.
Sure.
And it's not even a
So,
planet.
Jumping straight in, we'll focus
Well, it depends
on
who you ask.
Lorville first, and then we'll spread out
Dumb
to
people.
the rest of Hurston. So, establishing the mood of the city.
People who I don't like.
Usually, what we do is when we have a location, it's usually got a pretty good breakdown from the lore team. And
There's mold
you know,
around
I'm sure
the
you guys
back. I should be
understand
fine if
what
there's no
Lorville
mold
is
around
right
the
now.
mouthpiece,
So
right?
we wanted something that
I would discourage you from drinking that particular
we
beer
wanted that
until you've
mood and
properly
tone to
cleaned
feel
it.
Washed it.
consistent
Yeah.
with the downtrodden population. So these are
Or not.
early
Of course,
concept development
don't
sketches
listen
to
to
just
these
try and
silly
tie-
fish life form.
or try and dial
What's
in
the worst that could
the
happen?
mood, the tone,
You'd die.
quite high
You
level.
can get sick
But
and
even at
die.
this early stage, we knew we had a good palette to work from.
You asked for what's the
Because
worst
it's going to
thing.
be an industrial city, we thought that's going to be something that's quite interesting to tie into.
Okay, let's
in the
pay
city
attention
state.
to Lorville.
And then also we
I am
started
paying
doing
attention.
some visual development into trying to understand what like a day
Man,
in the
this
life
stuff
of
looks amazing.
a miner around Lorville.
I mean,
might
this is
be
all
like.
concept
So
art
we
still.
did this exploration period
Yep.
for some time, and we all
So
got
what ship
really
is that in the
excited
background?
about what we could do for
Looks like
Lorville.
a shuttle of some kind, something that we haven't seen before.
Okay, establishing the real of the city. So you'll notice, if you remember back to last year, Lorville got a little bit bigger than what we did. The feeling was to portray the scale of a city.
Wow.
We really needed to break down the core archetypes of a city. So what that means is you can start
The
to
city is the
establish
size of the
the
sky
different
map.
regions. So if you look in, you know, so you've got the big guy there, but around him,
It's
you've
nuts.
got the CBD regions, and these are good because they'll give you that relative.
Good thing we
scale
have a
of the
monorail.
big guy.
Yeah.
And then that will
They need to speed
go
that
out
thing up, though.
across into the inner industrial areas and the outer industrial areas. So even in this very early, this was like literally a screenshot from my monitor as we were working out that proportion of the city. And if you do a side-by-side to what's in game to this, even on that very early stage, you start to get an idea of what that scale would be.
And I think if we
So
put
they're
it
still
to,
talking about
yeah,
way
last
back
year,
in the past. I want them to get to
not only
now.
did the Hurston Dynamics building grow significantly,
They'll get to
the
they'll get to the
footprint
future.
just around
In
the
the future.
building was basically all the space that we used last
Sure.
year. And so we really pushed that boundary and made it grow way, way beyond that limit.
Well, if you remember
to
last
waste
year,
a
you
beer.
could actually fly over the city reasonably quickly, and
Then you shouldn't have
it's
opened
like
it
me flying
until
over
you cleaned
London
it.
in a few
No,
seconds.
like,
It
the
just
beer
wouldn't
itself
work.
is
So
bad.
We really did spend
that
some time
sucks.
on making sure we got that scale right before we took it any further in our
I'll
pipeline.
be right back. 2 seconds.
So
I'm sorry.
once we got something that we were happy with there, then we start to dial in the concepts to try and, you know, go a bit deeper into the shape language. You know, as I said before, we wanted to really push these bold vertical forms because it's not like a residential city or something. It's something that was built on industry. So I really like the idea that the skyline is almost dominated to something like that. So you can see how we're starting to develop ideas. And it honestly felt like we was developing like a real-time strategy game for the longest period because we would see like these images on the board of these top-down three-quarter views and we're like, hey, an RTS game would be kind of cool. So
Okay, so
as we
those are just
progressed
tiles, right?
We started to
Yep.
really think
Those are
about
tiles for the RTS
DNA
game,
of the
yes.
city, and we thought we quite like these large plated areas, but then we
I
thought,
mean-
So now,
wouldn't it be
now what
quite
we need is
interesting to
a
have
Star Citizen
areas
RTS
where
game. Got
you
it.
kind of
Let's be clear.
take off
They
some
could
of those
make a
platings and you start
great
to get a little glimpse
RTS
into,
game
the underbelly
from
of,
Star
yeah.
Citizen.
what's inside the
Yep.
lower section
They
of
will.
Lorville. So this
They
kind of
better.
shows you like a part of the development process where we're breaking down the visual language of the location.
What makes this interesting for us as
So this is all their
people who are
like
actually building the
visual
models in
dev
space
of let's develop
fact that
how
it is layered,
Lorville
and
is going to look,
everything
right?
that
Exactly.
started out
Correct.
at the ground layer is still there, and it's became these very dark underbelly areas of the city, which have a very different atmosphere and
Wow.
and feeling to it from what the levels above that have. So within
Has
this
those
layered system,
substructures.
there's
There's
almost
actually like layers
a
underneath.
variety of styles that you
Yeah.
can do with how you dress it up, what type
It's
of
a
characters you would,
multi-layered
run into.
city.
We had for
Yep.
the longest time, the joke of Dangerous Dave would be his corner where you could buy all
Dangerous
this
Dave.
illegal stuff. So that starts to become.
I do look forward to seeing a building
area
labeled shit
be very
raw.
different, and just looking at these concepts, we could already start to imagine. Okay, this is how this space would be.
I look
this is how
forward
this
to
space would be.
like
So this was really exciting
people
approach for
who
us.
get a
Sure. And
apartment close
Whereas a
to
previous image, which
the center,
is, quite visual, more of a map
selling
painting,
off their
that's
apartment
really
for
good
lots
getting
of
the
money.
team inspired about the location.
because
This sort of
an
image
apartment
that you're
building
seeing right
closer to the
here,
center is gonna be
it
worth more?
solves all the problems. You know, it's
Yep.
not big and glamorous, but you start to realize, okay, what is this city going to be made of? For the longest time,
The
we were
city is
thinking,
made of
how's this
dreams.
city actually going to bleed out onto the landscape? How's that going to be? Because Todd was always talking to me like, well, the players are going to get lost, right? They're going to be able to get trapped in some outer regions and they're not really going to have a good time. But that was something that we would have to solve a little bit later on, which I'll show you. Because this was going to be our first real major landing zone, we knew we wanted to get. So right now, if you play, if you're on a moon and you wanted to go inside an outpost, you get out your ship, you go through an airlock, and you're inside, right? But we wanted to give that feeling of scale of a city. We wanted the player to be able to fly in, land in the city. So we had to kind of really think about, okay, what would a Star Citizen spaceport be? So this was like an early concept sketch to show what Lorville spaceport could be. So you've got the landing areas there on the left, but then something that feels visually correct for Lorville, you've got these huge container yards. So we all got quite excited by that. And if you see like those little landing pads on the left,
I like that
that's
they
that's
get
an Niagara
excited
side. So we were like, okay,
just like we
we've really
do.
got to go big on this guy.
They're all like,
Okay.
this is so
So from
cool.
there-
And we're all like, this is so cool.
Jump into pretty much what you just saw. So this was like a still frame of the build right now. You can see the various reads of the city. You know, you can see the CBD in the distance. You got the big guy, and then you can start to see how that landscape start to transition into the different city archetypes. And also, at the
I
bottom
thought
there,
that
you
the
can
city
start to
looked
see
really, really
these
good,
transit
like it had
systems,
kind of
being
grown
introduced into the
organically.
city. One of the things
It's
that
up
was
to you
very
to
important
use
was like an
mechanics.
early
Yes.
image I made of Lorville. creeping around on the
Mechanically,
internet, and
I guess I would just
it's like
say
an angle like
mechanically,
this
but
from a long time ago, and
you know what I
it's
mean.
Very, very, very important for me to when we bring
Yes.
the camera down, and when you're looking up at this big building, it should always feel like he's just towering over you at all times. Compositionally, that it just felt really right for the location. I felt the sky was quite empty, considering this was going to be like a super city. So I wanted to put in these almost the like buoys in the city in the air. So you'll see like the TISA spaceport. This actually became quite useful. So when you guys start to play this, we have like this no-fly zone because we don't want to get you guys too deep into the city. So these actually became quite good markers, even for Glenn. You know, as we were doing demo playthroughs, I was like, "Hey, buddy, you got to keep above those markers." So that's something visually started to push useful design. Wide shot of the spaceport, and again, you can see that transit route from an aerial view. So in the middle left of the screen, that's the landing zone, and you can see it follow around. So when we started to introduce transit routes, Lorville became this almost like this train set as we started to connect it all together.
So I want to
There's
pause here
quite
for a
a lot
second.
of landing.
Okay.
Let's all pause.
Pause.
Okay. Pause.
I want to get a closer look at this, because if you get a close look at this screenshot here, you can see a whole bunch of landing pads, right? All along the right there and the
Yes.
center and the bottom. So looks like there are a lot of landing pads. Is the monorail in this? Is that what those
Yep.
lines are?
Yeah, that's what those tracks are. Yeah.
The U-shaped line along the outer edge in the bottom left corner.
Okay.
That is where the monorail is.
So I have a question for the two of you, because one of the things that they had to have considered while they were building Lorville is something that kind of bothered me in the gameplay, was the length of time it takes you to get from the spaceport to the city center.
Yeah, I think that's all gameplay testing. And not only that, but they also said, we've made one of many different possible routes in the monorail. Like, there's a whole bunch of different routes they want to make, but they've only completed one.
Okay.
So I think those are two things.
with
One
that-
thing, it could be tweaked, and the other one is that they could have new routes. Sorry, go ahead.
Even adding new routes, that doesn't change the fact that you are still physically located a great distance away from the actual city center.
Yep.
However, the reasoning that they had to do that is you will have ships like the Herald that are going to barrel through the no-fly zone, and they need time to be able to shoot those ships down before they crash into the city.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which makes sense. I hope that they acknowledge that we're not looking, or at least I don't know about everyone else, but I at least am not really looking for a 30-minute monorail trip every time I want to get to my apartment from the spaceport.
That wasn't 30 minutes, though. It was like a couple minutes.
Even 10 is a bit much. Like, if you have to wait 5 minutes for the monorail.
It wasn't 10 either, though. It was, I don't know, what was it, 2 or 3 minutes?
It was 2 or 3 minutes because they caught all of the trains.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now,
yeah, that's a good
they
point.
did say that had they missed that train that was only there for 30 seconds, it would have been another 5-minute wait before they caught the next one.
This is all gameplay tweaking, though. Like, you
Yeah.
can add as many trains as you want. You can make them go as fast as you want.
I do.
Within a reason.
You are, because they are physicalizing everything, because the spaceport exists right there and the city center is this far away from the spaceport, they actually can only tweak things so much, right? Like, they
Oh, yeah,
are,
totally. You can't be instantaneous.
yeah, they are slightly limited by, so that's, I mean, I know that they can tweak it. I know they can add more monorails, and they can make them faster. They can maybe add some more routes.
But I mean, it is a concern. I mean, you don't want it to take you. Oh, I have to go to Hurston. It's going to be an hour before I can actually do anything again.
Yeah.
So
One thing to keep in mind with that, however, is this will create downtime in travel that is automated travel where you're moving without having to do anything. This gives you time to look at your mobi-glass, plan missions,
oh, that's a good
deal
point.
with cargo.
Well,
and
if you
that
can
sort
deal
of
with cargo on there,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to presume you'll be able to, if it's general commodities, not necessarily having to deal with them specifically at a shop front. You can just go through a general Voyager direct.
Right.
I'm also sure they will add some generic shops right there at the landing pad just for stuff like that.
Yeah. One would hope that they'll make it so that you can just land at the spaceport and do stuff and then leave.
I agree though with both you and Jumbify there. I mean, all I'm saying is that I don't think they'll make the game like that, because if they do, it's stupid. It's but all of those things are gameplay testing, and they're beta stuff. And they're like, well, it takes too damn long to do everything, so let's make it faster.
Yeah. Okay. Are you guys good to start again? My video,
what is your time?
11:41.
11:41.
So am I.
Yep. Okay.
And
Three.
go.
No. Countdown.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, Go.
landing pads and hangars around Lorville for two reasons. We wanted
It works. I swear
lots
it
of,
does.
Obviously, locations for the players to land in, but also we wanted these ambient landing pads for the ship AI to use. And it's a shame you didn't see in the demo because when you're stood overlooking the spaceport and seeing traffic come and go, you start to, even in an early form, you start to get that. Oh yeah, this is going to be really good. I can see this working. Yeah, yeah.
That looks pretty.
Because
Yeah.
obviously the city of Lorville ends and it starts to go into the wilderness, you can see, because we spent a lot of time trying to figure out the visual design of the city, when you get like these wide shots, you can see how like these bold silhouette forms that we spent time developing starts becoming quite nice and readable. And when you want to traverse around the city, you can it almost looks different from every angle. So
You know, it's funny, the giant building there at the center almost looks like
and then
like an Egyptian like statue.
The biomes around Lorville.
Okay,
we tried to break
biomes.
them up, not to the point where it became like a theme park, but the outer
not a
region
theme park,
of Lorville
okay.
is split up into 6 gates. And depending on which way you're coming in from, we wanted you to start to recognize the, like, oh, I remember this is what gate 3 feels like, this is what gate 2 feels like. Very subtly, we're just doing composition tricks. So after you've been doing a few missions,
I like this shot a lot.
To get a read of the city.
I'm excited
quite
to see
interesting
some
because,
shots from
you know,
like
we can just literally
clean
grab the sun and move
atmosphered
it around,
planets.
and the city itself starts to have different.
It looks
moods and
cool.
tones
It will be
throughout
neat.
the different times of day.
But this, I mean, this is very
when
Blade
it's
Runner.
sunset because you
Yep.
start to see the.
Probably not going to
city
get that
lights,
in
a little bit
Stanton
more vibrant.
much.
And
Yeah.
this is kind of like a snapshot of where we are right now. We have a lot of tech planned for our cities in the future to do with placement and lighting to get that final cinematic frame. Okay,
Let's break it down.
let's break it down. Apologies, we've got a lot of slides to get through. I think we had
Oh
about
darn, many
50
slides.
last year.
I like
Terrible.
slides.
180 to get through. So
180.
Oh
okay.
my.
We'll try and speed it up a little bit.
As we was pushing towards the demo, we were saying we need way less slides, but there's so much complexity to what went into the demo you just saw, and I want to try and show you all the hard work we put in. So breaking down the landing zone. So we started right here, L19. We called it, it was the workers' district for the longest time, but we started calling it L19 because it felt right, and it felt like Lorville was split up into various different zones
That is
that
a
you don't
cool
necessarily get to
image.
see right now. So this was the this was a piece of concept which was distilled into. So we did visual development for the landing zone, but this was the one which pretty much ticked all the boxes. So from this one image, it hit every DNA point for what makes the Lorville landing zone itself. So if I start to break it down, right at the top there, you've got these large plates and overhangs. So when you look out, you feel like you're in a basin. You've got these large vertical flat faces, which is quite interesting because the sunlight barely ever reaches where you go. And it feels
cool.
right because, you know, when you see like these AI walking around downtrodden, they're literally getting starved to sunlight. And then about halfway down the frame, you'll see these guardrails, these platforms. So we split it up so that almost at all times, you're being overlooked. There's an opportunity for these guard AIs to overlook the population, and the system designers at work started to get quite excited about those possibilities. So we started to put in doors, and then if they see trouble, they'll be able to come down and sort it out. And then when we get down to the workers level, it's kind of, as we've seen, we can see lots of cameras, lots of listening devices, and then throughout Lorville, you'll get like deeper areas where you can actually look down and see these layers going down.
Looking down is good, but can we jump down?
Okay, because this was going to be quite
Possibly.
quite a sprawling landing zone. We kind of realized early on we was going to need good
People were
navigation.
getting lost.
Sure.
Really
So
good
we wanted to
navigation.
combine,
Yep.
So
big, bold graphic panels
L19
with
is that just
kind
one
of city
landing
navigation.
zone,
So
or is
you'll
that
see
the
these
not a-
guys throughout.
Yes.
the
It's
landing
one
zone,
district
and we also
in the city.
repurposed them later on to do
Oh,
some
okay.
nice propaganda messaging. I don't know if you saw any of them in the
district,
demo,
wow.
but the Lord team came up with some quite good messaging, and you'll have a good time reading those.
My
As we
favorite
was-
prop.
Yeah, as we was there's a good story. behind
Ooh.
this. As we was doing the
Those are the
kind
mask
of like the
things they
dressing
were all
part
wearing.
of the landing zone, I thought it'd be really interesting to have like these vending machines. So when you're there, I wanted the first thing to see is like someone's wearing like a single-use mask or something, you know, to really try and give that feeling like I'm definitely not in Area 18 anymore. There's weather warnings here, so this in combination
60
with,
bucks
you
for
know,
one of those is super cheap
some
considering
of the
an Aurora
headwear you saw in
is
the demo feels quite cool.
200,000.
Okay.
Agreed.
So this is a example of what we do is once we've started white box and we're happy and we started gray box in,
Damn.
we start to do like these very early look.
Okay.
Look
I'm
That isn't
getting-
impressive at
here
all.
we're
I'm getting a
basically
lot
trying
of
to
like
dial in the
City
composition.
17
So
vibes.
You'll see these
Mm-hmm.
larger oppressive shapes starting to be established, and then also straight up, I wanted the main security tower. So what we did was, wherever you go within L19, you can always see the security tower, and it's basically it works thematically, but it also aids navigation because no matter where you are, you can always check back and you're like, okay, I know if I get on the other side of there, that's where I'll be.
That looks really good.
Also, it helps on dialing in like the light in the atmosphere, VFX.
Ashes or soot.
This was the toned down version. The one I showed to Chris first was it was like a nuclear winter, and he's like, that's just a little too much.
That's
final shots.
that's too much. Wow.
The different areas around Lorville. This being Leafson Square, being a more like final version of the white box version you guys just saw in the video. So final lighting came in, final dressing came in, particle effects and AI all doing their thing. From a different angle.
They have guns.
We pretty much stuck with the same
Yep.
architecture, but everything is way more defined. So the final models came
Well,
in.
they must have lost their concealed carry
It's still
license.
very close to that initial feeling that we prototyped. The other side? You
Sure.
wanna-
People off stage are giving me the motion, so
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cool.
Hey, it's Ergo.
We've got 100 slides to go, so we'll speed up.
Yeah, they do have to speed up.
Again, these are just
They're
in-engine shots, so you can start to see this.
almost
No, they have
halfway.
time.
You can start to see those deeper areas inside the city. We thought it'd be really cool.
I
to
like
have,
the idea
these
that the
vista
city's
points
gonna
where you
be
can start to see the
vertical as
city,
well.
Being alive around you.
It's awesome.
Moving
I
on
do
to
have to
Leafson
wonder
Station.
if
So
you will
the
be
whole
able to take
motif
an
of
Argo
this
in
thing
like that.
was to
I hope so.
give that read of a
I-
train arrives.
Maybe.
I
you
don't
get
know.
These workers coming off the train. They've been in
I-
the mine all
I
day.
hope
and
we
they
can,
go up the
but
stairs,
I
they can either
understand if
buy
they
some
won't
gear,
let
they
us
can
'cause
get
they
some
don't
cheap
want
food, or they
someone
can
in
just go and
Argo
hit the bar.
crashing.
So the whole reason for this area was to sell that narrative, and when you see the trains coming and go, it feels quite cool. And then you've got these underbelly sections, so you'll have like these.
Man, I
outer
love that
areas,
shot.
And then
Wow.
to link them together, you have to go back under the city.
They're all
So we
very,
changed
like,
the composition. We changed the lighting.
Cinematic and
then we
movie-like.
start to see a
Like,
bit more of these.
I'd
efforts
expect
come through,
these
and
to
then-
be like
and then you got
panning
back hit,
shots
so.
or like establishing shots
Okay,
in
so
a film.
real quick on the shops. We knew we
Ooh.
wanted various shops within the city. We thought it'd be interesting if they almost rent the same unit and they theme and brand themselves. So apologies if I'm blasting through these slides because we'll get through them. So we've got
It's really
Tammany and
good.
Sons. This was the inside of administration that we didn't get to see in the demo. We did see this guy. This is reclamation disposal, and obviously you saw Don
Don't
Ely.
like him.
Don Ely's exterior. So
I don't think you're
we didn't
supposed
want
to.
it to feel like Disneyland, where we wanted at least like the facade and the area around that facade to feel cohesive.
Hey,
So,
some
in the
people
future,
on
this could-
Twitter thought
I
that
could see lots of activity in
the
in
Squadron trailer was for
we've got the bar.
an
It's a shame
upcoming
we didn't see
animated
that
film.
The trains go through the bar
Yep.
because from
was
the
fun.
first
Yep.
A Netflix
inauguration
series, yeah.
stage of the bar, the thing I wanted to do is I
Which,
wanted
hint,
a
hint,
bar lower than the
No
main
doubt.
area, and I wanted windows, and I wanted the train to come
Hey,
past.
they're doing
So,
it for Witcher.
You know, when that train comes past and everyone's glasses start to rattle and the light comes through, we just didn't see it in the demo.
That's
Okay,
cool.
pushing faster through. So common elements, you heard Todd and Chris talk about common elements. What are common elements? They are basically connecting, they're basically units which help connect spaces together. So rather than doing everything bespoke and unique every single time, these help connect spaces together. So the first one we saw was obviously habitation. Again, we did some visual design, but we thought it'd be quite interesting to take some of these industrial
that
structures
weird
that you see
ship
in the
up at the
city,
top again.
like this straddle frame, and what would happen if they repurposed those to be actual housing units. So we thought, hey, we're going to be high up. Wouldn't it be great to have some big windows so we can see out over the city? So these
Smog?
are like communal areas, and then each hab kind of goes off from that.
It'll be a lot like
So we saw
fishing.
this on ATV, but we did a sprint on
Yeah, Dirk,
modular
it's
habitation
concept
units.
art, but they do
So,
sometimes
we
take
wanted to get
like
that feeling that it was mass-produced a long
ships
So, I
time
mean-
ago,
that they want to
you know,
build
for
later
for
and
these
use them
Yeah.
in concept
worker
art.
areas.
So
And
it's always
because
important to keep an
because
eye
the
out for ships
architecture
and
was gonna
concept
feel
art because they
quite
could come along.
utilitarian, we wanted that personality to come from the dressing element inside. So what we did was we broke down each module and we did visual designs for each module and we did variants. So you know, we did
They really
like
should
various
print.
kitchens, various bed units, things like that.
allow you to pick
And then
images
we all
and
got quite
print
excited. Like
concept
I
art or
wanted,
print
I wanted
posters of
to
them.
see that personality. So
I
we did
like how
quite a
they
few
named
sheets
the bonsai.
What?
like ideas for dressing, some concepts, and
I
you know,
really
it would
hope
be
we
kinda
start
cool
getting
to,
these little things for.
see you guys place these.
That's cool.
in
That's
more
like-
units in the future.
I want my little bonsai tree, and I want to
This
be able
was
to
the
pick
white
up
box,
the rake.
and
and
you know, very
rake
important.
in
at
the
this
sand.
early
Hit
stage,
someone with it?
we keep
No, rake in this. I
proportions,
want to be
so
able to
even
make
from
my own
white box,
bonsai
things
stuff
tend to,
in.
Oh, fair enough.
My own
expand
Zen
quite
garden.
easily, but we tried to keep it tight. And then this was the final frame. I'm getting messages there saying, "You're out of time. Please wrap it up." So I'm going to keep going. We got a lot. Thank you. We'll go. Okay, and then this is the final frame of the this kind of like the area around the hubs. You know, the lobby area.
So,
and we wanted
this
that,
isn't concept art.
city
No,
shot.
this
So as
is.
soon as you come out
I
the
think
hub,
what there's
and
like
you're you
they
see
show
that
all the
space, but-
concept, and
as
then
an
the
idea,
final
as we go
frame
to other
is
landing
the.
zones, and you're like, hey, my
This
hab's
is
on
it.
What it
the
actually
you know, my
turned
hab's on
Yeah.
Yeah.
horizon. You can start to see
Wow.
how we
That's
could seam them
really pretty,
quite differently.
especially
I
the
think that's
windows
gonna
at the
be quite
back.
cool.
Yep.
Okay, pushing forward, next common
Ooh,
element,
transit.
We knew we needed a way to connect players throughout the city, so we pushed forward on these transit systems. Visually, it references modern design quite a lot, like a London Underground, just with a slight visual twist. And then this was in game, and
slightly
that
more
ticker tape
dystopian.
of the
I thought
your
it was
train's
slightly
going
less.
to be arriving. That came in this morning. So
I've heard some things about London.
to see, you know. But we were, for the longest time, we were like, we'll put a map on, you know, we'll do all of these things to imply the trains come in. You know, it says there, you know, train approaching. In theory, the train is always approaching. So we wanted, obviously,
In
something
theory or in
a bit,
fact?
a bit more accurate.
Well, it depends.
And
If
then
the
also
train crashes,
to
it's
aid
no longer approaching.
navigation as well. We did everything we could. So you've got
Or if
signs,
it's stopped
and
at
these
another
signs
station.
exit where you go, and the color
Point
coded,
taken.
so you'll get an idea of I'm
Details.
on the spaceport line or
Technicality.
I'm on the outer district line. And then on top of that, we knew we needed to
I
connect
can't
them all
wait
together.
until
and
someone
as
finds a way to
Todd
get
said, it was
into the train
painful
tunnel.
for the team. It was very painful to the team
I'm
because
sure
we
they
literally
will.
had to
Right
connect
away.
all the dots together physically. So this was a shot inside one of the transit tunnels, and as you can see, it's quite detailed. So if one day
Des.
your train breaks down and you get out, it would be kind of interesting. All right,
Beautiful.
so that was the transit route that took you into the spaceport. Next one was security. So this one is maybe a little bit light right now in terms of functionality.
I like
but that
that
will come through in the
view-
future. So this was
like
a
the-
very
the
early concept design
three-quarters
for what we
cutaway
wanted to do.
kind of
Yep.
thing. I love
You
that.
can see the right part.
I like that you
image,
have to push your
we
cargo
did,
through
but the left
scanners.
part
Yes.
we wanted, we went through a few iterations. So this was an early VT, and I was looking at it, I'm like, that system of taking off your bag and putting it on something, that's just going to cause all kinds of headaches. So then we thought, wouldn't it be really cool if you
To spread them and scan them.
Spread them and scan them. Yeah,
And
right.
you will find these scattered throughout the city as well for random searches, just in case there's some contraband.
I think a lot of the team really latched onto this idea, so we'll get them in at some point. So then we're like, okay, we can't do that. So what we ended up with was something that both the player and the AI couldn't get through. And then the final frame was this. So when you look at this now, functionality will start to come through, and what design have planned for it, it's going to be really cool. Okay, next one. So we was at security, and then we're like, right, okay, we're inside the spaceport. What does the spaceport look like? It can't look like L19. So after talking with Law, this is where Hurston Dynamics would spend a bit more money. This is the more commercial side. It's not the kind of downtrodden area of the workers' district. So we came up with a visual design which felt quite cool, nice lighting, nice materials and shaders, things like that. And then this
does kind of make sense. Airports are
our
always...
idea of what we wanted to do for the spaceport
airports
started
sometimes
quite simple,
look pretty cool.
And then it got bigger and got bigger.
Usually
and bigger,
they do.
And before too long, there was panoramic views out onto the spaceport. There was ship shops in there as well. So it got quite big, but
Almost a city on its own.
But the team did quite well. So these are going to be like hubs in the
I like
future
the almost art installation lights that are like,
and then we got that M50
geometrical
if
patterns.
you've ever gone through,
it's cool.
Was it London Airport or something? No, Manchester Airport. There's always this Jaguar always on sale. It's always on sale, and we wanted that idea of like, there's a ship on show that kind of helps lead you into the shop.
New deal, yeah.
Okay. Spaceport done, and then we were like, right, onto hangars. So hangars is something that we've wanted to dig into for quite a long time.
Hangars.
And now we finally got the opportunity to start looking into this. So this is our first set of utilitarian hangars. So we broke down the modularity, and for the word go, I didn't want a box. I didn't want, we knew they were going to be big. The blockout we got from design was a box, so we tried to think of any way we could to add complexity to that space. So we broke it down, and I thought, wouldn't it be really cool to have like these little alcoves where if you look, you see a little bit of activity where there's NPCs maybe fixing some part or loading some cargo or something. Or maybe there's like some transit cranes going through. So when you land, I wanted that idea that these spaces
so it's not just a box, there's
alive
stuff
around
going
you. So when you land your ship, the
hangars.
AI start getting to it and things start to move.
Okay.
We didn't have any associated gameplay with these modules, but I thought it'd be cool to imply like this is maybe the refueling part, this is maybe the cargo, drones, things like that. So what we ended up with, this was the final shot of the drone repair bay, cargo, refueling, and this was more of like a generic bay.
Beautiful.
And then this is where we went into the hangar. So I think we was all quite happy with how these guys turned out.
Yeah, and we have a little panning shot.
Cool. And then also, as we were running through this, I was thinking to myself, right, these things need to, as a common element, we need to be able to take these, theme them, brand them, then we got a location. That's the whole ethos of what a common element is. So one day I was like, what would the one on RCorp or what would one on Area 18 feel like? So I quickly did a lighting pass, quickly did a dressing pass, and then changed some shader. I was like, okay, this could feel quite interesting.
And like a forklift.
That is, I mean,
if we wrap up the stats, we might get to the planet stuff.
I like
so
this.
we're gonna.
That they can just
push.
They can
we are
change how it looks and feels just
this
with
was
some
the
lighting.
transit line gate, as you can see.
Wow.
Then we start to get onto the outer districts. So remember that problem we talked about before? How's that city actually going to end? So this was one of my VTs where I'm thinking what that outer wall could feel like, because I wanted something that was readable but wasn't necessarily low res and boring. So from this, the guys started to do a white box, and as soon as we saw this, we knew we had something that ticked that scale read, because it felt like we was on a buggy ride on the outside of a city. It felt really quite interesting. When you see that big guy in the distance, it just felt right. So we knew it was from an early stage in white box, we had something that felt quite special.
And all that skill obviously
so
needs to be translated
huge.
to anything that you interact with closer up as well. So when we go to the next one, this is the work in progress.
Love that
of
shot.
The Hurston wall. And what we were very keen on was to not have a flat wall for you guys to run into. Everything is
I like
layers
that they've
to it.
got
So
the
this is
giant
also
girders
translated
just
into
holding
wall
everything
pieces
up.
themselves, and then we have some final shots.
So yeah, this is pretty much what you saw in the demo.
Ooh, that was nice.
Kind of holds up, and then we
Oh,
have
I
these
love
gates.
that.
So
Look at the tree.
as I said, these are the 6 gates around Lorville. So these are what you need to look out for because these are the main ways into the city. So we made it tall and we put a big flare on it, and hopefully that's going to read.
Sweet.
And then at night, obviously, they'll be lit quite nicely.
Oh, that's
And then,
gorgeous.
Chris,
Holy
obviously
crap.
told you that this guy got quite big.
4 kilometers.
328 meters in
That's
length,
ridiculous.
and obviously, Lorville itself got
20,
quite
almost
big, but
25 kilometers
overall,
across.
It helps us push towards scale. So,
Like I said, the city is bigger
when
than
I like to do
Skyrim's
screenshots,
entire
I'll put
map.
my guy.
I love
my
that
guy
shot.
of scale in there, and that kind of gives you that feeling. So even
Nuts.
on the outer wall, looking at the big guy, it feels quite large. And
The big
as
guy.
you start to go out into the
I mean,
landscape, you
look
still
at it.
can
Oh.
see the city in the distance, and that feels quite interesting.
I like the ground
that
cover there.
wraps up
That's
the
really cool.
Lorville
Yeah.
part, and now we can start to move on to the
Okay.
part of the presentation.
The planet itself. Obviously, like we said at the start, so far we've been doing moons, and moving on to a full planet with biome diversity, a lot more square kilometers to it. We
Okay,
really were
let's
reevaluating
actually
how our
pause
tech
here for a second.
Worked because
We're gonna pause here for just a second because we're switching from Lorville to Hurston. Before we switch to Hurston, I think we should round up our thoughts just on the city itself. Nehkara, you're hiding, which means you get to go first.
I'm very impressed by the. I mean, do you want me to comment on the city or the work, or both?
It's up to you.
I'm very impressed by the work they've done on the city. It looks great, and I love that they made it as big as they did because it makes it easy for them to add new districts. Like the business district is coming in at 3.4.
Right.
And I don't know. I'm just I'm kind of blown away by the whole thing, and the visuals. Like the visuals are just awesome. What do you think, David? Oh, wave. Oh, crunch.
Can you hear the crunch?
Those of you who are watching the stream cannot see the Auto DJ currently waving at you. But trust me, my programming is trying.
Can you actually hear the crunch?
Yeah, I could.
Thank you all. That was cool. That was a nice little subway.
That was really cool.
Okay, so Auto DJ, what do you think about Lorville?
Overall, I'm impressed. I think they have nailed the oppressive feel that the Hurston Dynamics company helps to, or has built into their lore, built into their history, built into their entire design of how they want to go about everything. The city layout is pretty cool. I do have to wonder with their hangars if those are going to end up being quote-unquote instanced underground. Like, you land your ship in one, and it gets piped down into some other individual hangar other than the ones that everyone lands
Almost
at.
certainly. Certainly.
So that I'm kind of looking forward to seeing just generally how it's done. Otherwise, yeah, I'm really impressed, and I'm looking forward to being able to just wander around and explore something that is not Area 18.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Area 18.
And Erris, what are your thoughts?
Area 18 to me always felt really small and closed, and I know it was because it was just there. Let's get something. I mean, that's what they had originally planned landing zones to be before they were like, oh, well, we can just do procedural planets and then procedural cities and then just, completely go nuts. That city feels to me, and maybe not Lorville as much. I think my problem with Lorville is at this point I'm kind of burnt out on browns and like greenish vomit colors in games, and the atmosphere of the planet leads it to be very brownish yellow, which I don't really like. I don't think I will end up having a house on Lorville, for example, but looking at that city and imagining what they can do with cities in maybe different atmospheres, I could see myself, and one of the things they were talking about in the presentations was like, you get an apartment in a building and you can recognize which building is yours. And I can see that. It all looked very different. It wasn't even a skyline of identical skyscrapers. It all looked real. Like you'd be able to be flying in and point out to someone, hey, that's the building I live in. Mm-hmm. I don't like the planet Hurston. Lorville's a little too industrial and dirty for me, but man, does that make me excited for future planets and future cities.
That's actually one of the reasons why I've really been the whole time I've been, looking at Stanton. I've been really interested in Microtech for that reason.
Yeah,
I want to see the like frozen wasteland and the big like technological cities with the domes and everything.
Yes.
It's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be very cold. Be sure and bring your coat.
It'd be really, really cool.
Okay, are we all good to go again? 3324.
I have to back up by 1 second. But yes.
3324.
All right, lead us in.
3, 2, 1, action.
What we've done up till now, it held up, but once you start introducing more
planets.
complex systems, it became quite clear to us that we needed more.
God, that looks good.
Needed to go back to the drawing board. So
it looks like a planet.
let's just first quickly jump through.
I wonder if you can see the city from space. Hey, look, there's a city from space.
The wasteland is like 40 to 50% of the surface of Hurston. It's basically what's left after all the heavy industry. And we have wherever the coast hits land, we have the polluted coast. Obviously, the coast has had similar treatments. It's very nasty polluted, and it had its effects on the beach and the shores. Then there's obviously a lot of industry going on. The mining pits are one of the unique features that you would find on Hurston, both old and newer, more active ones. Then we had the trash mesa.
Trash mesa.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, wow.
This is basically the dumping grounds for anything that's not considered
I'm interested to
worth
see how that
scrapping.
looks in the game.
It's just, they put it in a big ship, fly it out, and just dump it there.
It is.
Because they don't really care about the planet. The planet is all about getting the resources
I'm interested
out.
to see how they do trash, because trash in games is normally difficult.
And we have a few sparks of hope left on Hurston.
Oh, Savannah.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, yeah, we saw some. Of course we did.
Yeah. That we added and put a lot of effort in. So hopefully
We did when we went to Relay.
more in depth on that one. But it's
And
what
they
Hurston used
went to
before
Relay
the
again
industry
today
came
in Around the
destroyed a lot of
Verse.
it.
Yes, they did.
And then as a little color accent, we added a acidic biome. Obviously, a planet
Yes.
rich in minerals.
Color
and
accent
resources,
of brown
often
and
has,
yellow.
some volatile spots. I think that's what these acidic fields represented. So it's around 5% of the planet that you can find these areas.
We wanted something extra in there that felt like the planet was starting to fight its way back. So these are very minimal on Hurston, but when you find them, it completely shifts that palette.
All right. Then we're going to jump in on what we changed on the text on the text side. So before, you might have, if you saw last year's panel, you might have seen this breakdown talking about the ecosystem textures. This system is still valid, but the top texture turned out to be our limiting factor. Because we tried to do the mining system, and this is some early shots at the mining pits. And if you look at this one, it's very clear that this tree-colored top texture was basically driving everything we did. So each color had a unique set of textures assigned to it, a unique set of assets assigned to it. And having just 3 channels to mask these areas out was not enough. So we wanted to dive a bit deeper into the system and see what we can improve. Obviously, when you start digging into the ground, you see all these different layers of sediment and different colors. And especially when you want to do more diverse biomes, you need more of that variety. So here's another shot, and you can clearly see how this 3-channel system, while it worked fine for the moons, was clearly holding us back, getting this nice, rich color breakup. So this is what we ended up adding. We added a new texture with, full color RGB that gave us the full range of colors, and then 16 unique grayscale channels in the alpha channel.
Wow.
So those 16 unique grayscale values allowed us to apply 16 unique material types, and it was no longer bound to that initial 3-color mask, because that was initially driving everything. So in order to make that
you have 16 shades of gray.
Ground materials, we went actually back to
a
bit older trick, where
And yellow.
terrain
And yellow, yes.
terrain,
And a little bit of green.
was done in games by excluding the colors from the textures and then applying a larger scale color map. So we have a bit newer algorithm to get the most dominant color out, so it's slightly improved over a traditional method, but sometimes what works. And in this case, it helped us scale up drastically. So here's some examples of the color map being applied.
Okay.
And with a bit more tweaking, getting the hang of the best balance, we started to see this way smoother color transitions, no more sharp patches of breakup, and way richer palette of color. So when we got to this point, we started to feel, okay, we're finally ready to tackle the savannah, which we'll talk about.
If the Argo weren't in that shot, I would say that's a photograph.
Yeah, that looks like a satellite image. Like that looks like someone took a satellite image of
it's really cool
a part
to see all these colors come in and see
that big.
how far we can actually push this now.
Yeah. That's
one
gorgeous.
thing that ties into this coloring is our asset scattering. We talked about this last year, where we had different color variations for each type of rock, and that was tied to where it was scattered. Now that we have a way more fluid transition of different colors, it was really hard to get that color to match up. So we improved our asset integration by allowing it to pick up this color from the ground and actually
looks so good.
Allow us to say, okay, we'll pick up a little bit from the color, or take all of the color and get a complete match. So we get a way nicer integration of our assets in the terrain.
Wow.
Another thing that we unfortunately lost
is again photograph.
Soft blending, because we had 16 unique layers, but blending 16 unique layers in the traditional way was way too expensive. So what we figured out was we could use dithering to actually get the illusion of soft blending. So there's a dither pattern that's basically hard cutting between A and B, and because it's such a fine-grained dither pattern, you actually don't see that it's doing that. So it smooths out the terrain and the blending while making it still affordable. And then here's a quick look around the mining pit.
Doesn't look like a game.
That's a view, right? Colors, all the stuff is there.
That's cool.
That doesn't look like a game. I'm sorry.
This was
You remove the player
one
and
of Pascal's efforts, and yeah, it's unfortunate that he couldn't be here to hear that applause, but I'm sure he appreciates it.
Ah,
I
just
think at this stage we kind of
go
knew
away.
we'd started developing the tech to a point where we could start tackling some more complex biome types. So I think when we got to that stage, we was like, okay,
Let's do the savannah.
let's do the savanna. So doing botanicals is hard. Doing botanicals on the planet.
I want to hear. I hope
very
they
hard.
talk about the trees because I want to
So
hear
we
how
were
they
like,
did
right,
those
We're
trees.
going to have to just jump straight in. So yeah, this was one of our artist screenshots. So we work in what we call botanical zoos, and then we kind of validate how the assets are working together in a very controlled environment. So we can start to see if the asset looks good, how the relationships between the assets look before we start distributing it across the planet. So yes, already within a zoo, it starts to feel quite nice at an early stage. So we started to push, and we started to
I like
distribute
green.
these across the
It
planet.
looks-
So these are very early savanna shots that we saw.
This is early and it looks
And
so
the
good.
thing that we already were familiar with was the actual creation of the botanical assets. In that regards, the pipeline was fairly.
I have to wonder if those cactuses can pierce your spacesuit.
But
Oh,
when you start
I hope
putting
so.
the stuff on a planet and you want more dynamic stuff,
I know it's Speed Tree,
it
but
became
they're
clear there was some
actually
stuff
taking
missing. So
advantage of Speed
when we
Tree, which
talk about
it
the
seems like a
object
lot of
gathering,
games don't.
there's a certain pattern that nature follows, the certain way it spreads out, the certain way assets cluster together, seeds fall from the tree, new bushes sprout out from there, and we really pushed hard to make sure that we can actually apply this natural logic to how our assets is spread.
One thing that you'll start to see a trend in is to try and overcome art obstacles. You can look at it on a planet, you're like, oh, this is great, but something's missing. The one thing we always had to do is go back to a controlled kind of art scene to validate that artwork. And that's exactly what you're seeing here. You're seeing a controlled scene, and you're literally assessing or trying to build a rule set for what the tech needs to do. And what Michelle said was right. You know, we can scatter assets everywhere, but actually, because we've all walked around in nature, nature does very specific things. And
I
when
wouldn't
you
say
see
all of
something
us.
that is slightly off, like this, you're like,
Oh,
I've only been to space.
that doesn't look
do
good.
you know what I mean? So it's as a way of developing, it became the process. So we would try something locally, build that rule set, push that into the tech, move on. So as a process, that worked quite well, we found.
Yeah. So this obviously is not a flattering screenshot, but it was definitely showing us what kind of problems we were running into, and then tying that back to this specific texture. This was once again a limiting factor. There's only 3 channels, and for example, the blue channel is specifically to mask out edges of the hills. The green channel, in this case, is the bottom of the canyon. And if you want to do very dense clusters, open fields, or very different density types, you're really running out of channels rather quickly. So the solution to that was to go back and think about it again, and actually doubling the amount of channels we have now
Add more channels.
from
It was
2
that
to
simple.
6.
Add more channels.
So that even means that on the mining pit one, which is on the left, we could mask out roads and
That's a
give
lot
those areas
more.
a bit more space. And those little red dots, for example, could be areas where we would scatter some man-made objects instead of sacrificing a full channel to do that. And then a further addition when we're talking about scatter patterns, if we have to calculate every single drop point for every single asset, it's going to be super expensive because every single drop point
I'm
has
not
to
gonna
be
lie,
calculated,
I don't
checked
understand
for
most
if
of
it's
this.
floating or not. And if you want to increase the density, not only are we limited to a certain grid size, we're also limited to how much stuff we can actually calculate. So what we came up with was a scatter pattern dummy model, basically. It's one specific scatter point, and then it's a few dummy points that are linked to that asset. and we drop that single asset, and we can then assign a specific group of trees or rocks to those dummy points. So here's a few example scatter patterns and a few very dense ones for very small objects. And then each of those numbers, like 1 to 30, we could assign the actual rocks. So we only have to do the calculation once where to drop it, and then we can actually render a whole batch of assets in one go. So here's how that would look like, and you already start to feel like, okay, this is a way more natural fall off of like the bigger rocks, and you have smaller rocks, and you have some vegetation that starts to creep up underneath. And the cool thing is that these patterns are blanco. So we make a library of those patterns, and then we can reuse them and apply different sets of assets. So with a different set of assets applied. And then when we talk about the coloring and
that's the same
scatter
pattern
patterns,
with different assets.
the way we added all the materials.
Wow.
That's really cool.
You start to see something that it feels way more natural than what you would see
so
on
good.
Daymar, Delamar, Yela, even though we're really, really happy with how those came out. I think, but all the stuff we added in the meantime.
I love that this is
we
the
got-
first
we got to
planet
push it
they're
way further.
doing,
This is a little tease
and
of
it looks
Aberdeen,
this good.
one of Hurston's moons.
But we know that they're going to
But,
continue
yeah,
to
this
improve.
is definitely
Yep.
where we want to push it.
What
And you have to wonder if they're going to go back and redo
So
it.
I know. I wonder
we
that.
introduced that part of it, and we started getting better results. But again, it was like, okay, something's still missing. So again, we take the assets and we validate it in a controlled scene. And the main thing we try to focus on here is lighting and how light scatters through that object. Because when you start to see like a bunch of trees together, the way it actually occludes light is quite interesting, and trying to simulate that on a planet scale was quite hard, and it's something that we're not there yet. Canopy shading is something that we really do want to push, and when Chris was talking about we want to do like really dense jungles and quite thick areas of botanicals.
Of course,
it's something
Chris
that
wants
we
really
need
thick
to
jungles.
continue to push
It's in the lore.
to get to.
I know.
But what you're kind of seeing here is the shader set up on the leaves and how much light to get through, how much is too much, how much isn't enough.
Look at the
how
chrome
that
board
works
orb.
with our build.
Oh,
It
wow.
is accurately reflecting
Quite a long time, or
the
quite a
whole
hard
tree.
job trying to get the LODs of the assets working, because
Wow.
when you look at a tree in the distance, obviously
Wow.
the light is scattered naturally, and trying to recreate that on a flat billboard was quite challenging.
And then another thing that would be a missing component is movement.
Yep.
To the video.
Just
Obviously, we've seen trees move back and forth before. This is not a new thing.
Yeah.
But one of the things that is important to realize is that this is based on a calculations like X and Y, and we push into X and Y directions. The issue actually kicks in when you realize that's all based on a flat plane terrain.
Yeah.
We're doing everything spherical. So we had to go back and just change the math to actually make sure that X and Y are at least relative to where you are on the planet. So we started to get pretty, this is a first pass, and then after a little bit
It's
of
the
tweaking and
wind.
iterating, we started to get some,
there.
Oh
some results
my
that we're
god.
getting really happy with.
Wow.
It turns out movement, again, was quite challenging, because trying to get something that works on one asset, but then also would work on a distribution of those assets, because you could see something that worked quite natural on one, but then you array it, and then they're all kind of doing this, you know. So there was lots of meetings when we're all kind of like acting out wind bending for the longest period of time. And what we want to do is we want to define wind strength per ecosystem. So no matter what asset you put in, as long as you calibrate that asset to work in a minimum wind strength and a maximum wind strength, then in theory you can just change that wind strength per ecosystem, and all the assets should move.
And
So
they needed
it's
the
not
wind
just
anyway,
trees,
'cause
but
they
it's
wanted
like smaller stuff like
atmospheric
bushes,
flight,
and
they
then it goes down to
wanted
grass, and
atmospheric
all
flight to
three of them
feel
kind of work in very
different. So it's going to
ways.
affect
So
the
that
wind,
took
but
a
then the
while
wind
to
also
push
affects
through, and then
the
in the end,
trees.
like
and
we had to tone down
And the particles.
Yeah.
the wind strength quite a lot for the demo, because the smoke reacts to it. And for one time, we had where the relay was, it was really blowing a storm quite like that. I thought it felt quite cool, but it was just too chaotic. You know, when you was trying to have a gunfight in there, it was too much.
And when you look at the future of the system, obviously right now we determine it by ecosystem, but this would tie in or be driven by a more global influenced weather system. Okay, jumping through it. Object coloring. So when we talk about object coloring on vegetation, one of the things that we ran into is like if we start reusing trees, we had a canopy that was like fairly green, and that's fine. But what happens when you start to add more diversity? We first started looking at, okay, we use the same system. We make a material variation for a tree, have a few variations, and then apply that to the tree. But managing that content and making sure that it was actually looking good and scattered nicely and spread out started to become a bit of a challenge. Also because it's 3 colors and it's going to stand out. It doesn't feel natural or organic. So one thing we did as well was to make an adjustment in the shader where we could just put in a strip of colors, and it's just one shader for all the trees, and it will just pick up the color from that strip and just assign a random variation within that strip. So here's a very subtle one, but if we introduce a few more colors, you can see how this starts to become a more natural thing. And the cool thing is we only need to manage one shader. We apply it to everything, and
they can have fall.
And just to illustrate or emphasize what is going on behind the scenes, this one is just
Rainbow Planet.
Rainbow Planet, yeah. So this very.
I want to see that planet.
You put a rainbow strip in there, and it will just pick up the colors and randomly distributes them. And here on the grass, but obviously it works a bit better with a bit more subtle approach.
That's beautiful.
We're getting closer, but there's still more work to be done. So this was a feedback sheet I gave. Like the bottom image is where we was at currently, and then the top image is a painter I gave to try and push the team to establish the correct palette. Because what happens is you can work on all the assets, everything that Michelle's saying is all credible, but when you distribute it, put it in the scene, you're like, still not gelling together. So what we had to do was we had to suck out some of the greens and start to unify that palette together.
Yeah, we hate color.
A bit more consistent. And after that feedback, these are the shots that we're starting to...
As a starting point, yes.
I know. Really it looks so good.
One of the things we wanted to do as well is we'll have these regions where we can set up now, we can set up these regions where it's literally the pure green botanicals. It's literally no pollution's got to them.
Can I go wander around there now?
People finding those. And they were like, right, okay, we're so close, but there's something. Then the more we kind of looked at it, we're so used to seeing our atmosphere in a very particular way, the way the light scatters through the atmosphere, the way we see sunsets as red and blue skies in the daytime. And for the longest time, we had the atmosphere set up on the right. So then I was looking at it, like, something's just not right. It's just not where we want it to be. So then we calibrated Hurston to look like Earth. And then instantly we were like, this starts to feel really good. So what we did was we tuned it to somewhere in the middle, so it still had an element that felt thematically correct for Hurston, but it still had that believable and cinematic quality to it. So after all of that lumped all together, this is where we finally ended up with. And I think everyone was very happy.
It's so good.
That's a photograph.
We're just going to jump through the final shots here.
We was
like,
going to say we'll just have
tell me
one
that
planet
is
shot
not...
of the savannah. We chose 9, so we're just going to cycle through 9. But you can see how
that cat
every
just looks...
single
I love it.
Just
I like that shot.
Was pushing towards
Oh, wow.
these final screenshots
just
where we wanted it to be.
And obviously we had some final shots for the other ecosystems as well, just tying back to where we started. So the Hurston Wasteland used to be savanna, but hey.
That first wasteland one is the only one I've seen that looks not like a photograph.
These don't... That... Oh, wow.
Interesting
Wow.
enough, you heard Chris mention when we was flying over, like,
That's
was that
nuts.
a road? It's not a road tool per se, but we have the complexity now within our textures to define a road leading through. And
Look at it.
one thing I recommend you all to do is grab a buggy and then just follow one of those dirt paths along, because you can literally just follow along, put some headphones on, and it's really good. And I think we're all at that point now where we see less visual errors, and we're at these points where, like, this is starting to feel quite good.
Hurston Truck Simulator, anyone?
Of the
Yep.
Trash Mesa.
That's
Wow.
that looks really good.
Acidic.
Oh, I really like the
So
aesthetic.
for those of you who
That's
follow
so
along
nice.
regularly with ATV, you might
Wow.
know
Yep.
Ariel,
Yep.
one of the other moons
Yep.
of Hurston.
That looks
It's a
good.
very acidic moon, so you'll be seeing way more of this on Ariel.
That's beautiful.
Wow.
Okay, so to close, we got through all 180 slides. What do we want to achieve? We wanted to achieve the first planet in Star Citizen, pushing the feeling of scale and the feeling of diversity.
That
and that was the
frame
same for
right
Lorville
there.
as well.
Like the
I
smoke
think
coming out of
we
the
all
factory,
pushed
the
quite hard, and we're all quite
behemoth
happy
in the
with
back.
where we ended up with.
It's beautiful.
Worth also noting it's a huge team effort. So this is the Star Citizen environment and lighting team. We are relatively small in number, but then you've also got the other disciplines as well. So I think it's worth noting it was a huge collaboration by everyone. And also, we are hiring. So
If any of the stuff that we talked about excites you, and if
Yes.
if you're into 3D art,
Wow.
texturing, environment stuff, we are looking.
if you want us
ramp
to help
up.
us build the stars, yeah. I mean, that's true, because we have people in our studio right now who joined us from the community or went to school because of Star Citizen, and that's great. So, we are hiring. So if you're passionate like we are, we want to speak to you.
Wow, that's a scary thought.
And that wraps
Star
up the
Citizen
presentation.
started.
Oh,
Someone
God.
said I want to go to school for that. Went to school, got and graduated from a school with a 4-year degree, and now got a job working for the reason they got their job.
That's awesome, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
That whole panel was really cool.
Yeah. It really was.
I want to walk on planets now.
I can't wait to wander through that savannah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
Otto, your thoughts on the whole planet biomes, all of it.
I frankly am impressed. A lot of those are photographic quality. If not given the context of this isn't a video game, I would say, wow, I did not know we have places like this on Earth.
Agreed. Nehkara?
Oh, it's wow. I'm lost for words. It's really impressive, especially the savannah. That was a big technical achievement.
Yeah.
I think that's why it got such a big reaction at the event at CitizenCon. But I just love the biomes. I love how they blend them together, and I love that there are biomes, because
Yes.
a lot of games go, this is a volcano planet, this is an ice planet,
Yeah.
this is a smoke planet, and that's not really how planets work. And it's awesome to see it there. I really loved that last shot overlooking Lorville that you commented on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't wait to see. Really, again, I'm going to reinforce it, but I really can't wait to see Microtech. I want to see those biomes. So I think that's going to be cool.
A lot of it will be frozen wasteland, though, for that particular biome.
Yes.
And I have to, thinking about that, I find myself wondering, okay, how diverse will Microtech be? You are going to have your city biomes. You are going to have your snow-covered land. You are going to have glacial stuff with granite and mountains.
Also,
Yeah,
they did show some trees on Microtech. So you might see some like frozen forests.
You do also have like so it might be a frozen plant. I'm trying to find a good image that I can put up on screen somehow, but I don't like how Google does its images now because I can't just open the image.
You're still playing a video.
You have to right-click.
What? I thought I told that to go away.
And then click Open Image in New Tab.
I told the wrong thing to go away. That's why.
That's okay. We just saw them go to Relay.
It's true. I think that they'll be able to get away with it by having less severe, like, if you look at like Arctic, even on Earth, I know it warms up on Earth and it looks, well, without snow it looks like normal, but I think they'll be able to have like super cold areas that are more like Antarctica, full of ice, and then they'll be able to have areas that are more snowy, maybe even have some flora covered in like I think they'll be able to diversify it. The thing that interests me most is, I mean, Hurston is a very shitty planet, and Microtech is going to be a very cold planet. Again, like for the cities, I am more excited to start seeing what they do next. When they start coming out with like Earth-like planets where there's, 30 different biomes. That I'm excited for. So,
yeah, Earth is their end goal.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't even know. Like, I'm sure there's some person at CIG sweating over trying to do Earth every single day, because that's really hard. They're gonna have to restrict flight paths a lot.
Yes.
Earth, frankly, I would not at all be shocked if it was one of those, yeah, you only get a couple of landing zones. Sure, there may be the 4 main city landing zones, but other than that, there are going to be 5 or 6 natural preserves that you can fly to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond that, no, you can't get within 100 kilometers of the ground.
Yeah, it'll be very basically. Like you've got these places only to go, and if you try and go anywhere else, you're shot because it's all.
Because straight up, otherwise you end up spending like 4 years making Earth.
Though, I mean, they could just fudge it because it's far enough in the future that just put cities where cities are, procedurally generate them, and good enough.
Yeah, but again, you don't want to get too close to them, or they're going to look really weird.
Will they? They'd be future cities. They'll be future cities, procedurally generated future cities.
Except that they've already shown that a lot of the existing cities that are landing zones still look like the cities of today, with like some new buildings and stuff.
They'll procedurally generate it. I have faith that CIG.
Concept work.
I have faith that CIG will find a way. Everyone will be like, no, we can't possibly do it. It has to be done this way. We have to. Someone will be like, what if we just take Google Maps' open source data and plug that in and extrapolate it a little bit, and then boom, and they'll be like, oh.
That would require an entirely new tool, but it would be pretty awesome.
Sure would.
It's
interestingly that might get them some wins if they can do that, because there's also Mars is also in Google Maps.
Yes,
Or
See,
on Google Earth, sorry.
like Fastcart says, CIG do love tools.
They do.
Okay, we're going to shut this down for tonight. There's not going to be a panel stream tomorrow night. Saturday, there will be a relay station. Sunday, there will be nothing. And then probably...
Back to panels?
Yep, back to panels the next week, Monday, Tuesday, etc. I'm not sure which days next week there are going to be panels. I got to figure out that based on, well, when I'm busy, really. Sargarath, Saturday, it's myself, Nehkara, Shiver Bathory, and Commander Llama.
I'm sorry. I actually just found out in the last, while we were doing this, that I cannot do Saturday.
Okay, I will.
I apologize for that.
I will.
That was my screw up again. So I've screwed up twice
additional
tonight.
plans.
I've screwed up twice tonight, which is great.
It's okay. It will be myself, Shiver Bathory, Commander Llama, and a surprise guest as yet not known.
Cardboard cutout of Chris Roberts.
Yes, we'll figure it out.
No, surprise guest, as of yet, not announced, though clearly already known and accounted for and planned for.
Totally. Yes, what Auto DJ says. 100% planned. We got this. The next panel next week will be Lore Maker's Guide to Alpha 3.3. Again, I don't know when we'll be doing that one, but we'll get to it. And once we do that one, we're not even halfway. There's so many panels. So yeah, thanks you everyone for hanging out and for watching. Yeah.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
Please make sure to return my programming to the base's radio station, because my backup is running the music, and that's never a good thing.
Yeah, but I'd have to drive over to Rico's place, and he lives in French land. So what if we just keep you?
Do you value your pornography?
I don't have any.
Not anymore.
Thank you both for being on. Thank you all for watching.
Anytime.
Everyone go play some Red Dead Redemption, because yeah, we'll see you guys in the
I gotta go set up my new TV.
Do it.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in.
Have a good night.
Bye.